Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Subject Overview and Scrutiny Committee 3 meeting. It's been held at Bridgend Civic Offices on the 20th of February at 4 p.m. The meeting, which has been convened, is hybrid. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed subsequently. Should I, as Chair, experience any technical difficulties during the meeting, Councillor Colin Davis will step in and take over temporarily as Chair in my absence. And in his absence, then Councillor Walter will step in. Please can everyone ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda, and I will ask officers to present a summary of key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep your camera and microphone switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference. If any members and officers wish to raise a point or question, they should click the Raise Hands icon at the top right-hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I will come to you in the order I receive requests. Please lower your hand once you have finished speaking. The instant messaging chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphones until I invite you to do so. I will ask officers to introduce themselves when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. They too should ensure microphones and cameras are switched off when not in use. I will now proceed to the agenda. Agenda point 1, item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. So we've received apologies for absence from Kerry Evans, the Director of Business Development at Alwyn.
Are there any other apologies for absence? No indications. Okay. Point 2, declarations of interest. To receive declarations of personal and prejudicial interest from members, officers, in accordance with provisions of the Members' Code of Conduct adopted by Council from the 1st of September 2008. Are there any? Councillor Jonathan Pratt, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Personal elected member of Porthcawl Town Council.
Okay. Any more? Councillor Nero Farr, please. Press the button now.
I'm also elected town councillor for Porthcawl.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more indications. Okay. Move on to the item 3, Porthcawl regeneration, invitees. Was that on? Oh, we're in the wrong one, are we? Yeah, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. Yeah. Item 3, Porthcawl regeneration. I will ask officers to briefly present the report. I will then call upon members to indicate they wish to speak by clicking on the Raise Hands icon. In turn. Janine, you delivering the report, yeah?
Yes, I am. Okay. Thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon in front of SOC Committee 3 to talk about the Porthcawl regeneration, because we've got an awful lot to talk about today and an awful lot of progress updates to give you. So it's great to be here with you. I would like to say that I've got 2 of the members of my team, prominent members of my team, that have been instrumental in bringing forward some of these schemes today. Chair, I've got Jonathan Parsons, who's my head of planning with us today, and I've also got Jacob Lawrence, who's my one of my regeneration officers who works extensively in Porthcawl. So I've got the team with me today. So what I would like to do is to give a little bit of introduction to the report, to take you through a presentation, mostly images, Chair, just to give some illustrations of Porthcawl. We've got a fly-through video at the end on the Grand Pavilion, which hopefully the team here will be able to get it working for you. And then what I'd really like to do is to take questions then. I'd be happy to do that. So if you don't mind, Chair, I'll just give a verbal update to begin, and then I'll move on onto the presentation.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So the purpose of the scrutiny today is to take an overview of the Porthcawl regeneration programme. Now, the programme itself incorporates a very wide range of past, current and future projects of varying scale. Now, where appropriate, these have been subject to statutory and non-statutory consultation. But it's critical, absolutely critical, that we take the views of all residents and businesses when we are looking at redevelopment on this scale. And that's something that we have done quite a lot of in Porthcawl, and I will tell you a little bit more about that as we progress through the presentation. But BCBC has an ambition to ensure that Porthcawl is a seaside town which retains its rich history and heritage, absolutely critical, but that it provides a modern, sustainable, attractive and economically viable place to live and to work, to be educated, and also it's key as a destination for tourism. Within our county in particular, it brings in a lot of money into the economy itself. So we need to ensure that it's not only a good place to live, but a good place to visit. So an important part of any regeneration and any decisions we take, Chair, are visibility and decision making. And within your report you have today, in paragraph 3.2, we set out a whole host of notable reports to both Cabinet and Council that we've undertaken over the past 3 years on the work that we're doing in Porthcawl. In fact, during the last 3 years, we have taken 8 reports to Cabinet on the projects within Porthcawl. We've brought 3 reports to Council on the same subject. We've had 2 scrutiny meetings on the subject and a call-in as well on the appropriation of land, which took place on the 3rd of November 2022. Now, in addition, we also do quite a lot of work and briefings with the Porthcawl local members themselves, and they're regularly briefed on the projects to make sure they have the most accurate information, most up-to-date picture so they can brief constituents. And we also did a walkover of the site, the complete Porthcawl regeneration site, with local members recently, and they found that invaluable, Chair, to really set the scene and to understand the scale of what we're trying to achieve and the compatibility, what use sits adjacent to what. And what I would like to do today is to formally offer to the SOC3 committee that same site visit and walk around the Porthcawl regeneration. Myself and my team would be really happy to do that if we could arrange a time and a date, if of course the committee would find that valuable. I would really welcome that, an opportunity to do that. So if we talk a little bit about consultation and engagement then, there's been significant consultation activities we've undertaken, and I will talk a little bit about them later, but just for clarity really, we've done extensive consultation on the local development plan. We had a 6 to 12 week consultation on that. It's now at the examination in public stage, and it's with the inspector at PEDU at Welsh Government. Now, the examination in public is where the inspector looks at the plans and all its policies, including all of those land use and policies pertinent to Porthcawl, and makes a decision whether the LDP should be adopted by the council. Now, the date for commencement of that examination in public is the 28th of February, and all the sessions are online, Chair, and the date reserved for Porthcawl matters itself is the 21st of March 2023. So what I can do after this meeting, Chair, is supply a link to that date so that if members of SOC3 wanted to join that session in particular, they could link in online. In fact, we could probably do more than that. We could send you the timetable of all LDP sessions, because I think there's about 12 sessions over the time period, and you can join virtually and listen to the session, Chair. We've also consulted on lots of things like the Porthcawl placemaking strategy. We spent some time back in 2021, 3 weeks in fact, consulting on that, had an exhibition, boards at Cosy Corner, but I know you're all familiar with that. And a couple of weeks ago, we did some additional workshops with key stakeholder groups in the area to look at the open space concept design, because that's the next stage. I can tell you a bit more about that later in the presentation. There's also been consultation on various planning applications that we've undertaken, for instance, the Aldi food store, the Metrolink, and the Cosy Corner redevelopment. So in essence, Chair, what I'm trying to explain is we've done an awful lot of Cabinet and Council reports and scrutiny sessions, but we've done 3 distinct layers of consultation. We've done strategic consultation on the LDP, the local development plan. We've done local consultation on the placemaking strategy, And we've done detailed consultation on planning applications itself. So we feel that the whole programme is highly visible, and hopefully our residents and the community should be aware of what we are trying to undertake in Porthcawl. So let me just talk about placemaking before we get into the regeneration, because that's a very important part of regeneration, is a sense of place. Now, I joined BCBC back in late 2020, and what was clear at that time is there were a number of fantastic projects being undertaken and lots of ambition for Porthcawl. But what was clear is that we needed to bring this all together under one placemaking strategy. And that was to ensure we had a consistent look and feel across Porthcawl, that developments that were being proposed were complementary, that open space and public realm was threaded throughout the whole of the design, that we had things like active travel and sustainability embedded at the heart of our plans, and significantly that we provided a mixed-use development. Within our LDP, we have an allocation of new homes required for Porthcawl over the next 10 to 15 years of 1,100 new homes, Chair. And some of these need to be affordable. We need a new school, we need open spaces and parks, and community and leisure facilities. We also need transport infrastructure and lots of environmental protection from the sea defences. And all of these things together, excuse me, are the foundations for the creation of employment and a sustainable economy. So whilst a number of projects are going to continue being developed by BCBC, such as the Eastern Breakwater and the flood defences, the Metrolink and the development of Cosy Corner, there is still so much to plan and so much to deliver. A substantial amount of what we are going to do in the future will be in partnership and will be delivered by the private sector. And so what will be important is that we get the right cabinet and council decisions at the right time. We'll seek those. And also there's going to be plenty of opportunity for more scrutiny as an integral part of this regeneration programme. So if I now take you to the presentation, so bear with me, Chair, I'm going to try and see if I can get that up. Okay, it's visible, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can take you through this presentation. So, really, what I want to do is to talk through the elements of the regeneration area, look at some of the processes we've undertaken, including the CPO, briefly cover the appropriation of land, a little bit more detail on the placemaking, look at Eastern Prom and the Breakwater, look at the Porthcawl Resort Investment Fund, the food retail, the Metrolink, and then our successful LUF bid. Now, the successful LUF bid, levelling up fund bid for the Grand Pavilion, is outside of our regeneration area, but it's a very important part for the county, so I want to include that. So what we have on the screen now, Chair, is the regeneration area. It's 32 hectares in size in total, which is circa 79 acres in old money. So it's a substantial area. It's from the Sandy Bay, the former Sandy Bay caravan site, adjacent to Relic Dunes in the east, all the way down to the marina and the breakwater in the southwest. Now, the majority of the land is owned by BCBC already. There is an owner's agreement in place for land at Coney Beach, which is owned by a private individual. And then the area of land surrounding the High Tide bar, some residential properties off Mackworth Road, is not part of the redevelopment. And you'll see that that is the area just beneath the Monster Park, the green area. That's not included. If I take you to slide 3, maybe this becomes clearer. And these are the areas we've divided the regeneration up into plot areas. So what you will see is each plot area has its distinct size and a distinct name now. So we have Sandy Bay East, we have Sandy Bay West, which is the former Coney Beach. We have Salt Lake North, Salt Lake Central, Salt Lake South, and Hillsborough. And those are the areas now that make up the regeneration. So when we talk about the placemaking later, these are the distinct areas. Now currently we've got developments taking place at Salt Lake North, which is where the Aldi store is, and we've got developments taking place on Cozy Corner, which is just adjacent to the marina, and we're working up plans for all of the other sites, and then we've got that joint owners agreement. But there's a couple of things I want to mention to you that are really important. One of the first things that's important is that anything we do is consistent with the local development plan and the placemaking strategy, for sure. Those are our foundations that we're going to work on. The gateway into Boothcall is that roundabout, as you can see as you come into the site. And it's really important the way we treat that roundabout and the vistas that you have when you enter the site. There are two sites that are quite important, Site C, which is a Wellamore, and Site B, which is the old police station. And we're looking to see what we can do with those two sites. And then Site A, Chair, just at the bottom, you can see Town Square. We want to look to see whether we can do anything with that area as well. And then, of course, the pavilion sits outside this regeneration programme. However, is a very, very important component of the overall economy of Boothcall. So if we move on to the Boothcall compulsory purchase order. Now, back in the 20th of July 21, Council gave approval for the advertisement, notification and progress of a CPO to acquire land to deliver our regeneration strategy. And in essence, Chair, I won't take too much time on this, but it was to acquire land that had no registered title. That was some lanes, as you can see, on the right-hand side. And it was to cleanse titles of other land in the area, in particular areas around the Monster Park. Now, this is a legal process, Chair. So we published it in October 21, and there was a statutory objection period, 21st of November to the 26th of November. And a wide range of views and representations was sent to the Welsh Government Inspector at Pedu. Now, the CPO will be subject to a public inquiry in due course, and we will know the outcome, whether we're successful or not. What we're doing here, Chair, is just cleansing the title and enabling us to move on with this regeneration in a controlled manner. It doesn't mean that we've agreed the land use going forward. Everything is subject to detailed planning permission, but it just clears the way for us to be able to do so. The same for the Boothcall appropriation, Chair, but I won't dwell on this too much because we had a scrutiny call in on this, didn't we, recently. But in essence, what this shows is the areas that we have now appropriated to planning purposes, the area at Sandy Bay and the area at Griffin Park. And what we've got on this slide, number 8, is it just overlays the areas of land that we are undertaking a CPO on in the blue, and the areas of land that we have appropriation on. And they're the two mechanisms that free up the title and the planning on this area to enable us to bring that redevelopment forward. Now let's go back to talk about the Boothcall placemaking strategy itself. And we talked about the importance of placemaking, given a sense of place, making sure we have appropriate land uses adjoining each other, make sure that we have all the key components of what makes a good place to live. Now, we did a detailed consultation on the placemaking strategy back in 2021, and we had a significant amount of input from residents who asked us a number of things. What they wanted was more green space. That was very, very clear. to shrink the size of some of the space on Salt Lake that was given over for housing. Those were the two big things they wanted to do, Chair. The public also were very interested in lots more open space. They wanted to have connections right through the development, and similarly, they supported removing the traffic off the front of the Eastern Prom, so it was pedestrian access only. And also an important link for us was to link the Dock Street, old historic Dock Street, back to the front of Porthcawl to reunite the town centre with the waterfront. So one of the things I want to show you in this series of slides that come forward is what this placemaking strategy now looks like as a result of that public consultation, because we've shaped it to reflect the views of the public. So what we have done, this is Salt Lake itself, and if you see the label that says Eastern Prom, what we have done is we've reduced the size of the plot for housing, and we've introduced a beautiful long seafront park into the front of Porthcawl, 200 metres long by 70 metres wide. It's the size of 2 football pitches combined. And what it does, it forms a green, beautiful open frontage to the water. And remember, Chair, what we are proposing is to take vehicle and movements off the front, so you'll be able to walk across that prom and have all that green space. You'll also be able to walk on the Dock Street link that links you right back into the town centre itself. We're looking at putting a piazza at the front of any leisure facility. You know, we have talked about a hotel development, and you can see the piazza being indicated there. There'll be an open public realm piazza. And the one thing I wanted to talk about as well is just behind what could be a hotel site, we see the words flexible community event space. Now that is the bottom end of the Hillsborough car park by the Harlequin building. And what we'd like to do there is to literally turn that into like a square where we can have pop-up events or community space, really. So as you're walking down the Dock Street link, we have community markets or stalls right in the heart of the redevelopment. So what you see in the middle of the screen here is the proposed seafront park on Salt Lake, and what you will see is the size of it. It's the size of 2 football pitches. It's bigger than the Oval Basin in Cardiff Bay. It's bigger than the seafront at the play area at Barry Island, and it's akin to the space that we've got at Aberavon, because a lot of comparisons have been drawn, Chair, between Aberavon and Porthcawl. So what we have is that piazza and that long seafront park. And the work we're doing currently with the communities and with the events is to try and get the communities' ideas for what it is that they want to see on these spaces going forward. It's a very large space, so we should be able to combine a number of facilities there. If we move to Sandy Bay, what we have done here is introduced a swathe of green space a ribbon of green space running right through the development. We're doubling the size of Griffin Park. So Griffin Park is extended. It now runs into what most people know as the Monster Park, and then it will run all the way down into Relic Dunes. There won't be any development on Relic Dunes. So we're doubling the size of that park, and you can see that's a green ribbon. So now, Chair, you'll be able to walk all the way across the seafront park from Cozy Corner, then across the road through Griffin Park, through the Monster Park, and all the way down to the beach. It provides a green ribbon. It's really important, though, as I said, that the community is involved in this open space concept. And on the 13th and 14th of this month, we were at the Grand Pavilion, and we had 2 sets of stakeholders, 5 each day, who came along and spent some time with us doing some real urban planning and placemaking. We had lots of young learners from primary schools and from the comprehensive schools. We had groups from from Porthcawl. I'm going to ask Jake to tell you who they were, Chair, because I know Jake was at the session.
Thank you, Janine. So on the 13th of February, literally last week...
Could you introduce yourself first, please?
Sorry, Chair. My name's Jacob Lawrence, Principal Regeneration Officer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, so on the 13th of February, so Monday last week, we had the Porthcawl Comprehensive students, representatives from Porthcawl Shout, representatives from Porthcawl Town Council, and also representatives from A Voice for the Future of Porthcawl. And followed by that session on Tuesday, we had the same session with Porthcawl Civic Trust, Better Porthcawl, Sustainable Wales, and Parkden Resorts. And I think the image on screen you can see here shows what we did. One of the parts of the session, we had work within the venue at the pavilion, looking at potential opportunities and having discussions. But what we did is we went out on site and walked the key spaces, and we had a very large scale floor map, which you can probably see from the image on screen here, where members of the public were able to engage in the plans in kind of real time and look at ideas and test potential ideas. So what we'll be doing is we'll be following up those sessions with public consultation later in March, where we'll be seeking views of the wider public as well. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. So, yes, this is planning in action, really, isn't it, Chair? So this is encouraging the town planners of the future here to shape the way we guide developments, and we've had so much positive feedback from these sessions. So this is the type of engagement we want to continue with the community going forward. So I just want to talk about the Eastern Prom and the Western Breakwater Sea Defence, because this is a critically important project for Porthcawl. We've had a £9.4 million grant from Welsh Government to assist us with shoring up that breakwater that you can see in the photograph and doing some flood prevention work all along the Eastern Prom. Now, this was to protect homes and businesses from flooding as a result of global warming and the rise in sea. Now, the work is due to be complete this spring, and it's a significant milestone for us in the regeneration. Now, most of the work you will never see, Chair, as the breakwater, you can see in the picture there, was, believe it or not, a timber construction inside. So we've had to repair that and then fill it with ballast. And similarly, the works on the Eastern Prom are really on the reverse side of the wall, shoring up those walls for the wave action. But a lot of the landscaping that's on top of the sea, the promenade, is deliberate, really. It's deliberately in waves to break up water if it did top over, to prevent flooding. And what we've done is we've had all marine planting on it to make it a really attractive environment, as well as having active travel routes throughout the whole development. So it's an important part of opening up the front to pedestrians. So let's talk about Cosy Corner then. So this is the Porthcawl Resort Investment Programme. Now, what I'd like to do is to spend some time giving you a little bit of history to this site, Chair. But what I can't do this afternoon really is talk about Credi or any of its activities because of ongoing action with that organisation. However, what I can tell you is about BCBC's involvement once Credi went into administration and what has happened since that date. Now, that site at Cosy Corner is owned by BCBC and it was leased to Credi Limited. Now, BCBC had no involvement in any of the previous development of that site. That was just as a leasee, the development was to be undertaken by Credi itself. Now, on the 5th of November 2020, the administrators handed this site back to BCBC because Credi was in administration by that point. Now, it was very untidy and parts of that site, I'm afraid, were unsafe as the contractors had left semi-constructed foundations for the proposed building on the site. So there was significant amounts of debris across the site. There were significant parts of reinforcement, rebar, protruding from foundations, and there were holes all across the site itself. So what we had to do on that day, we had took possession back as we were the freeholder, was to undertake a risk assessment with some immediacy, and then we had to secure the site from the public to make sure there was no risk or harm from that site itself. Now, it was clear that BCBC had no revenue or capital expenditure to spend on this site, as it was never intended we would develop it out. So what was...
Janine, I'm going to have to stop you there a second. I got Nora Clark indicated, protocol members indicated to speak. Nora?
Thank you. I mean, if the, the conversation is going to go on about credit, then obviously I'm going to have to declare a prejudicial interest and leave.
Are we going to discuss credit any further?
No, I just mentioned it in passing. This is not about credit now, it's about us.
It's about we're going on to BCBC's activities now. Nora. Okay, thank you, Nora. Thanks for that. Carry on, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. It was very clear that such a prominent site couldn't be left in the semi-constructed condition in the heart of Porthcawl. So in December 2020, the Cabinet set out a number of guiding principles and approved them for the way forward for Cosy Corner. And this was based on information that we had at the time. Now, the first thing the Cabinet wanted to do was to retain any funding from WEFO that was still left and had been allocated to Cosy Corner, adopt a partnership approach with key stakeholders. We thought that was vital to bring a community use forward. Take action in a suitable time frame, because we didn't want to see this site lay vacant. We wanted to minimise the ongoing maintenance requirements for BCBC because of the revenue implications, and we wanted to enhance the tourism offer for Porthcawl. That was really important. Now, in March of 21, BCBC agreed a fund of 384,000 to enable architects to be appointed and us to have some concept designs come forward. Now, in the pack today, in your report pack, you have a list of Cabinet reports detailed at the rear, Chair. So what I won't go through all of those because there's a significant amount of detail, but just to say that after a procurement exercise in May 21, we appointed architects who came forward, and we worked with those architects and WEFO and Welsh Government to see how much money was still available from WEFO for this site and what the conditions were for us. Now, what was clear is there was £1 million still available, still left, but WEFO said to us that we had to fulfil certain criteria if we wanted to have the benefit of that grant. They asked that anything we developed on Cosy Corner had to have community organisations at the heart of it. They asked us that we had to bring forward improvements to the local economy and tourism. So they wanted to see employment creation and some small retail units and the like. They wanted to see improvements to the marina facilities, such as storage and changing. And they wanted to see improvements to the wider community, actually, such as a change in places facility, children's play areas, they had to be free access, benches and public realm. So in October of 21, Chair, a Cabinet report was submitted that outlined that the £1 million was to become available to BCBC and that we then had to find revenue to match fund that in order to bring the monies forward. So that is what BCBC did at the time, Chair. And what we have on this slide here is the planning application drawings. It's a CGI of what it is that we envisage for the site. Now, actually, let me take you back to the first one. So what was really important for us was that we had a building that sat in its setting in terms of it was adjacent to the Jennings listed building. So the building that was proposed by us was roofs, a maritime roof structure. It was full of stone matching the Jennings and glass. And because of those conditions from WEFO, we did a number of things. We introduced a large area for children's play, lots of public realm, lots of outdoor seating. But importantly in the building, you'll see there's 3 roofs. So on the right-hand side, Chair, what we've got is 4 small retail units that could be split into 4, 2 or 1 very large retail unit. And they are currently with EJ Hales to let them out commercially. Significant interest. So we're hoping that by May this year, we'll be able to offer those out to let. The middle of the building is an A3, a restaurant for food and drink in the middle. And then on the right-hand side, what you will see is a small kiosk that might be suitable for ice cream parlour, for instance. And that is where the business end is. What we have there is changing facilities and lockers for the marina. We have a changing places toilet, and lots of plant in that area. So that's the entirety of the building. Now, the project was tendered back in March 2022, and John Weaver Construction was successful, and they were appointed to construct that building. Within the capital programme itself, there is 2.79 million allocated for Cosy Corner. 1 million is from WEFO, and then 1.79 million is from BCBC, from their capital programme, and it's from a number of different sources. From the capital programme itself, from an earmarked reserve from underspend from the year before on the regeneration budget. It's from the Strategic Regeneration Fund, and those are the components that make up the 1.79 million of BCBC. Now, the building is, sorry, Chair, I should say, I can't really discuss anything further about the construction contract because, as you recognise, it's a live contract currently. So the building is progressing well. It should be complete by May 23, and that is the condition of the WEFO grant, the £1 million grant, that we get practical completion of the building by that time. And then the landscaping and children's play will be complete later on by the summer, so hopefully everybody can enjoy the area. Let me take you to Salt Lake North and the Aldi development. Now, the detail of this project was set out in a Cabinet report in January 21. Aldi were the successful bidders when we advertised this land for disposal. But what was very important, Chair, is that we had a very detailed design brief approved by the Development Control Committee, and that was used to ensure we had a high quality design. It maintained the vistas down to the sea. There was marine landscaping and public art. Planning permission was granted in December 22, and this is a CGI of what we can expect to see. What you'll see is a very large single-storey building, but it's got a two-storey height at it with a wave-like roof. We've got some very good quality external finishes, marine landscaping, a piazza at the front, which maintains the views down to the sea, and even some public art. In fact, Aldi has said it's the most expensive store they've ever constructed. But what was very important, apologies, Chair, I was not very well 6 weeks ago and I'm still coughing, so bear with me. So what we have is a very high quality design, and rightly so. We need to set the bar for what we want to achieve in Porthcawl. So not only is this Aldi development very high quality, but also is Cosy Corner and the Metro Link. That is the quality that we are expecting down in Porthcawl. Now, the capital receipt for this land disposal, which was 3.5 million, is now included in the capital programme itself and is earmarked for infrastructure work in Porthcawl. And that is how we're going to fund things like the Dock Street Link, that long linear park, and other infrastructure projects. We shall use that capital funding. Now, this is Aldi underway. Actually, it's being constructed at an astonishing rate. And we're hoping it's going to be open by late summer. They're already recruiting staff for the store, I believe. Now, I won't dwell too much on the Metrolink project, as we had a very detailed council meeting on that earlier this month. But just to say that the Metro is being funded by the CCR and UK Government's Metro programme to the tune of 3 million. And we're expecting work to commence in spring 2023. So what the Metro is a 4-bay bus facility to introduce public transport into and out of Porthcawl. And what you will see is what I've talked about, that really high quality design. the curved steel, the glass, the sedum roof, that grass green roof was required not just for planning purposes to make the building net zero carbon, but also as part of sustainable drainage, SAB approval. So that's how it'll look from the piazza. And this is how it looks from the portway. So buses will be able to pull in and pull away. And that is being funded, as I said, extensively by the Cardiff Capital Region and money from the Local Transport Fund, which comes via UK government. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Grand Pavilion. We applied for a bid for the Levelling Up Fund. The UK Levelling Up Fund, you're allowed to apply for up to 20 million for each constituency that you have. And we have a constituency of Bridgend and a constituency of Ogmore. And you're also allowed to apply for up to 50 million for a strategic transport bid. So in round 2 of the Levelling Up Fund, we bid for monies for the refurbishment of the Grant Pavilion. And we also put a bid in for a brand new Penprisk Bridge in Pencode under the Transport Fund to bring forward that and a level crossing. We've yet to bring forward a bid for Ogmore, and that's something we're going to do in next round's, Chair. Now, the categories for Levelling Up Fund, just so everybody is aware, was heritage, town centre regen, or transport. So what was very clear is that this is a beautiful Grade 2 listed building in a very, very poor state of repair. In fact, some of the concrete is spalling and probably at its life's end, especially in that maritime environment. And also, we wanted to extend it and have brand new modern facilities to future-proof it. So what we can see from this artist's impression is we want to open up the main door and the frontage of it, but more significantly, you will see on the first floor, we've got a glazed cafe and bar area. We're doing lots of structural work, but there is also an extension to the rear, to the right of the building, to introduce a new theatre space, a new conferencing facilities, a new backstage, get in and get out with acts, because these days they bring much larger kit. And we've also got some retail units or units on the ground floor facing into Porthcawl itself, down the side. So I think overall, the estimated cost of this work was in June 22 circa 14 million. But of course, since that time, we've had cost price inflation. So we applied for 18 million for LEF, and we got the full 18 million. Now, BCBC has to match fund 10%. So we have to contribute 2 million, with the LEF providing 18 million. And whilst that 2 million is sitting within our capital programme, Chair, the intention is that we're going to bid to, for instance, the National Lottery Heritage to fund that match funding component piece. Now, we had confirmation of this bid on the 19th of January. We were thrilled to have that. And now what we need to do is to progress the procurement options swiftly so we can get this site out to procurement. What's important to note is that the pavilion will continue with all of its performances throughout the entirety of 2023, right up to the Panto. And then we're hoping to start the renovation works, the extension, the restoration in January 2024. So we'll be well underway this time next year, and then completed by the end of 2025. So that's the programme that we're hoping to adhere to. That's the programme of the Levelling Up Fund bid. But if I may, Chair, I just want to take you to a fly-through and show you what it is we're proposing for Porthcawl at the pavilion. And what I'll try and do is narrate it as we go through. Now, best laid plans and all of that, so let's see what we can do. It's at the bottom of the link, isn't it? I've got it, Chair, so I'll just share with you and let's make it large. Jake is going to narrate this, Chair, because I've been talking for an hour. You probably don't want to hear any more from me. There we go, Jake, over to you.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Chair. I won't try to take over from the images in front of us too much because they do say a picture tells 1,000 words. But essentially what this is a fly-through that's been prepared based on artistic impression CGIs of the proposed developments that would be delivered using the Levelling Up funding. So what we've got here is we're flying into the main entrance of the Grand Pavilion and turning left within the internal space, and in turn turning right. And what this will do is it will take you into the building within the performance area shortly. So this is the main hall that you currently know. So that will be retained and enhanced. And those facilities Janine was mentioning in terms of off the back of the pavilion will enable performances to continue to take place in the pavilion, the backstage stuff be managed in a more efficient way as well. It's quite amazing the technology that they can produce these things with these days. So what this will then take you out into as we go through these doors shortly is this rooftop level essentially, where there'd be a new bar and cafe provision, really maximising those views out towards the sea, but also the design ensuring that the heritage features of the listed building are preserved. That sits quite seamlessly. It's clearly an extension, but it doesn't try to compete with those really, really important architectural features of the building. So this is just flying back out, taking a bird's eye view of that extended building. I think it's probably important to point out as well that there's a lot of damage to the building as it stands in terms of the state of the concrete, things that can't be seen, to the passing observer. But what this development will allow the building to have is all of these things restored. So both the existing structure has the longevity, but also these additional features can be added at the same time. So this here, as you're looking out, the new frontage there onto the public realm. And then we'll move down through to the backstage area and the extension to the rear. Again, so this is the back of the site, looking at that new extended rooftop area and also the projecting extension there out to the west, with the car parking retained. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's all we had for today, was the presentation and the fly-through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else want to speak before we ask questions? No? Okay, we'll thank you very much for that. We'll move on to questions. The committee's ready. Anybody got any questions on the compulsory purchase order? I got Councillor Ian Williams first to indicate, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If you remember, I was a little bit concerned about how much detail is being given to local members regarding the regeneration of Corp, because I think in January's council meeting, the cabinet member for regeneration was asked how much of a contribution BCBC were making to the Metrolink bus shelter, and she said none because it was CCR and there was no contribution from BCBC, when in fact it's nearly £600,000. So I'm just wondering how detailed and how often are the updates, and how much attention are these local representatives pay into the updates.
Anybody?
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Farr, you going to take it?
Yeah, I'm going to take this question. Yeah, I think what was clear in the report that was presented to the council, and the presentation from Janine, it says quite clearly that the money that we were contributing from BCBC was from the sale of the land. So that money is ring fence for Porthcawl. So that's what I meant. It's that money, although technically it is BCBC, but it wasn't. It is for the sale of that land. And I think I can assure everyone that every stage of the development we've had meetings with the local members, so they are aware of every stage.
In the pre-meeting, we had a discussion regarding, it says in the report about new school. Now, with the exception of some of the Porthcawl members, we don't know where that school's going. We think we know where it's going, but we're not sure. Is there an actual location currently for the new school?
Yes, what there is, Chair, is it's a location for education use. There's no decision been made on whether it's a new school or an extension, etc. That's a decision for, obviously, the Director of Education, Lindsay Harvey, and his team to do a public consultation on that. But what we do have is an area of land identified on, Jake, could you show us? Wonderful. At the top of the Sandy Bay area. Right. It's an area of land adjacent to the existing school, as indicated for an education use, and that is included, I believe, in the LDP, John?
Yes, it's sorry.
So that, just to be clear, that where you're highlighting there is a Sandy Bay area, is it? On the graphic there?
If I may, Chair, it's where my cursor is. If everyone
right.
can see
I can see in the corner there, right?
A thin red line within the kind of wider Sandy Bay red line.
Yeah.
And it's this area here, which is broadly a square-shaped area to the south of the existing Newton Primary.
Right.
So that's been safeguarded for education provision and is identified in the LDP, which John may be able to provide further detail on.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. For the purpose of the recording, I'm Jonathan Parsons, Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. As my colleague has pointed out, yes, that it is identified within the policy for the Porthcawl regeneration within the replacement local development plan. So it is allocated within that plan as a specific.
For that area just highlighted by Jake, yeah.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Farr would like to come back in. Go on.
We've also got a Welsh medium school planned as well. Not on that site, but it is in Porthcawl, and the local members have all been
and I think
consulted.
Councillor Williams' point was, does this detail, like that detail, I didn't know that detail in the corner of that site there was highlighted for schools. Is that information being given to the members, it says 6 Porthcawl members, they all up to speed on this? They've had all this information, have they?
I think we've got several Porthcawl members here. Maybe we can ask them because they all attended the briefing. So we have got, I think, 3 Porthcawl members here, including myself, 4, including me.
I shall ask. Janine, do you want to, before I ask the
yes,
Porthcawl members?
Of course. Thank you, Chair. There's a number of times we've advertised that we want to put this site here. It's a key part of the placemaking strategy. Yeah. So that was brought in front of Cabinet. It was in the Cabinet report with a copy of the strategy. We did a 3-week consultation on it down in Porthcawl, and that was part of the strategy. It's in the LDP, so it was consulted on as part of that of LDP strategy, and of course we briefed the local members as well. So there's been plenty of opportunity. Now, what that site is used for, it says education. Again, that hasn't been decided, whether it's a new school or an extension of the existing. That is something that will come out as part of the consultation, I would imagine, the SOP consultation in due course. But there's been plenty of opportunity, Chair.
I should ask the 2 members in the room, just out of curiosity, were they aware of Councillor Clark? Councillor Walter, he's a Porthcawl member. Let's see what if he can enlighten us. Councillor Walter, please.
Yeah, just
Sorry,
Just
Councillor.
to assure you, Chair, and the committee, and Councillor Ian Williams for that matter, that I have attended all briefings, have been very grateful for them, and I offer meticulous attention to what's being told to us. Thank you.
Did you know, well, the question is, Councillor Walter, did you know that that site highlighted by Jake just a minute ago was allocated for education provision?
Potential education provision, yes. Thank you.
It was dependent on how much notice you've taken in the various briefings I take, maybe, is it? Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark, or?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, as I said in the pre-briefing, that it was probably going to go behind Newton Primary School, and that is the area that is being talked about. Yeah, and I also said about the seedling school, that the site for that is possibly going to be Porthcawl Primary. Okay,
Councillor Pratt, will you come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to add that. I repeat what Councillor Walter says. Really, I'm more than satisfied with the briefings that I get from BCBC and officers.
We won't pursue that any further.
Yeah, no, that's fine. No, I'm more than happy, and rest assured, I pay my attention to them as well. Thank you.
Well then, thank you very much. Councillor Steve Bledsoe, next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's in relation to the heading of compulsory purchase, and in the report 4.4 details the public inquiry that's happening into the compulsory purchase. I'd just like to know what the local authorities' potential exposure to costs are in relation to that public inquiry on a successful or not successful basis. And is there anything that, and this is going to play on my naivety as a first-year councillor, is there anything this authority could have done to kind of stop it going to a public inquiry? Not from a blocking it going there, but is there anything we could have done in the consultation process or the communication process that could have allayed fears of local residents who have requested that it goes there?
Okay,
thank you.
Jean?
Yes, of course. Yeah, happy to answer that, Chair. So a compulsory purchase order is only an extreme event when we can't find an owner for land, or where there is a discrepancy. For instance, the Munster Park itself is owned by a family, a large family, and they have asked it goes to CPO so that if it went to inquiry, the inspector could decide the value of the land. So we have been negotiating with the family, so it didn't go to CPO. But I'm afraid the family have decided they prefer that as an option for them to decide what goes ahead. So there will be a value on that land that we will pay those owners for that land, and that's built into the regeneration programme budget. The other thing, of course, is you are only entitled to what's called compensation if you can prove the land is yours and you have an economic reason for the land. So, for instance, some of the lanes that we have don't have any title on them. BCBC have maintained them for years, actually. So it's unlikely that people would come forward and have a title and be able to prove that those lanes were theirs. And only then, if they do, we would pay compensation. Now, we went and we did quite a lot of work with the community, put quite a lot of information out in the public domain, but I'm afraid there was a lot of misinformation in the community, and people thought that they could object to the CPO. The only reason you can object is if you own the land and you can prove you own the land. So there was a considerable amount of outcome saying we don't want this to happen, we don't want the regeneration, but none of those, I'm afraid, are valid reasons, Chair, to object. You can only object if you own the land, and then if the CPO goes forward, you can get a compensatory money amount. A CPO can only be done, brought forward, if it's in the community's best interests. And this is about land assembly and bringing forward a mixed-use development on a redundant site. So that it's been deemed that, it could be deemed by the inspector it's in our interests, and we may be granted those rights. But that's subject to the inquiry. But to answer the councillor's questions, absolutely, we didn't want to be here, but there was a lot of misinformation in the community that we couldn't stop, I'm afraid. People objected, some of them without valid reason, but we'll let the inspector decide that. and the only costs we would be exposed to are the costs for acquiring the land at a district valuation, at a district valuer's valuation. And at this moment in time, we think that's only the Monster Park itself, and we have the monies available to acquire that, because we've been trying. So hopefully that answers that question.
Councillor Betts was indicated to come back in, so I'll let him
Yeah,
come back in.
just purely for clarification. So there's been a number of representations made by those who don't have the right to make a complaint. Then is that the situation?
Yeah, I believe. Oh, thank you, Councillor Platt. So I believe a significant number of people put in representations to PEDU, to the inspector, that they didn't want the land to be compulsory purchased, but they don't have an interest in the land.
So they got not understanding the rules, basically, and they were told
Yeah,
that, I assume, then.
I'm assuming it is. But of course, you are entitled to put an objection in, and it will be for the inspector to go through them to decide whether they're valid or not. That's what compulsory purchase is dealt with by an inspector at Welsh Government. But you have to have an interest in the land to have a valid objection.
And that process is ongoing as we speak, yeah?
Yeah, we're hoping that the inquiry for the CPO will be held later on this year.
Okay, I got no further indications on the CPO and the appropriation, so we'll move on to Councillor Betts. So you come back in again, or you was down and I think it was taken down for you, and it's gone again now. Okay, moving on to call placemaking strategy, pages 7 to 9. Any questions on the placemaking strategy, please? Pages 7 to 9. I've got Councillor Martin Williams indicated.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This occurred to me after this meeting started, I'm afraid. Question to the Cabinet member for regeneration. Huge change coming to Porthcawl, and obviously she's been in post now since May last year. So my question to her is what is her understanding of the vision for Porthcawl, and what sort of coastal town are we trying to develop here? Are we building a Burnham-on-Sea or a mini Blackpool, or is it something that I've heard other local members for the area describe as a bit more classy? So with all due respect to those who live in Burnham-on-Sea, but my point is, what is the Cabinet member's vision for Porthcawl? Where does it sit? Is it a resort? Is it a coastal town? Maybe she can articulate that for me. Thanks.
Councillor Farr,
Thank you, Chair. I would say it's a mixture of both, really. It's somewhere where there'll be opportunity for employment, and more for me, the fact there's going to be 30% affordable housing, that my children don't have to leave Porthcawl, that they'll be able to buy somewhere to live in Porthcawl. So really, it is a mixture of both. The two engagement day we had last week, especially with the children from school, they had vision, what they wanted in those open space area, and I'm hoping that we can hopefully put some of those in action. So yeah, my vision is a mixture of both, somewhere where people can afford to live, afford to eat, and have jobs. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Williams, happy?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Next is Councillor Jonathan Pratt is next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, sorry, just something that came to my mind about the placemaking strategy. I'm fully in support of it, but I would wonder whether Cabinet or officers are aware of a current campaign going on that's saying that these sort of 20-minute towns or cities are somewhat trying to restrict residents as to where they can go, and it's also some sort of weird conspiracy theory type thing. I know Oxford City Council have fallen into the trap of this, and many other local authorities are starting to be questioned on their strategy. I wonder whether it would be prudent of either Cabinet or officers to make a statement that this is not accurate, and it's not going to restrict anyone's rights or where they can go in general. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
If I can just start, then I'll pass over to John. I read that on social media today, actually, Councillor Pratt, and I mean, what the 20-minute is about is a concept. It's about where you can access essential stuff within 20 minutes walk or a ride. So I think people have got it wrong. They think it means you can't travel outside of those 20 minutes, that you'll get fined or something.
That's part of the placemaking strategy or thoughts, Jonathan, if I'm right, isn't it? I was listening once when Jonathan explained this to us in a meeting. It just rings a bell anyway.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm pleased that you remember that. Yes, it's a concept, and we've tried to build that into the strategic sites that are coming forward through the replacement LDP. And the idea is to go back to what we remember as being traditional neighbourhoods, where you don't have to travel miles, you don't have to use a car, that the facilities are provided within a 20-minute walk, brisk walk or a cycle ride from where you actually live. So it's not about keeping people contained, it's more about you don't have to go out of the old
when you
neighbourhood.
form a development, you have to take this into account to try to sort of incorporate that into the development. That's my understanding. What you said.
Absolutely, yes. It's key to the policies on the strategic sites that the developers have to take this into account, and they have to come in with a sustainable master plan which demonstrates that you can achieve a 20-minute limit on the need to travel, but it doesn't restrict people if they wanted to go into Bridgend or Cardiff or Swansea or Abercwmbir. They can do so. It's no restriction, and I think it has been misinterpreted in the press. I've seen those articles, and in some cases in Oxford where the authority had put barriers across roads, but that again wasn't to stop people getting out. It is more about controlling the space on the streets so that people, children, elderly people can actually walk with safety rather than be conflicting with motor vehicles. And there's more about that, I think, that some elements of the community weren't happy about not being able to access places in their cars. But this is completely different to the concept that we are trying to promote through the LDP. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you much. Anybody else? We've got next Councillor Stephen Bledsoe. Is that you come back in, yeah?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if possible on placemaking, I'd like to ask 3 questions, if possible. They are very short. The report mentions a delivery of housing to meet local needs. Could I have some form of idea or anything on what the local needs are? I think as a perception of Porthcawl, it's an affluent area. I know that the BBC radio presenter once stated he moved to Porthcawl for tax purposes. There is that perception that Porthcawl is a nice area. So I'd like to know what the meeting the local needs are in the plans, please. It also states in this that there's in the placemaking there's going to be construction of a multi-storey car park. I've had numerous conversations with officers in this authority about the need that Bridgend has for a multi-storey car park, to be told that it doesn't fit within the Welsh Government's modal shift plans. So could I please ask why there's a difference between a multi-storey plan for Porthcawl and why Bridgend can't achieve the same ambitions? And lastly, this came up in the presentation. I noticed from the map that the area that's currently occupied by the ever-popular fairground is included in the plans, which is a key part of Porthcawl and people's visitor experience. Could I ask what the plans are for, if that area is delivered, what the plans are to provide any form of fairground facility within Porthcawl?
Okay. Point 3.
Yeah, I'm going to take the question 3 because I think the other 2 are quite technical, which I'll pass to the officers. I think what we're exploring is a travelling fair, like a seasonal thing. I mean, my personal vision is maybe have a travelling fair during the summer and hopefully ice rink, winter wonderland, something like that in the winter. Those are my personal thoughts, but whether that'll happen. But yeah, we are exploring travelling fair.
So the static fair, we understand as there now, like I've been there thousands of times, same as everybody else. That is a thing of the past that's gone, yeah? That's correct to say, is it? Yeah. Okay.
Shall I come in, Chair? Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Since about, I think it's 2014, there's been a landowner agreement between the family that own Coney Beach, the fair, and ourselves on Sandy Bay, and it's been in 2 or 3 LDPs as an allocation for a mixed-use development. So there was always the intention that that would be removed and would be used for alternative purposes. Now, just to make it clear, Chair, that fairground is owned by a private individual, and he is part of our land deal, an owner's agreement, and so he is going to sell that land as part of the redevelopment. So, as our Cabinet Member, Councillor Farr, has indicated, what we are looking at is an important part of this regeneration of Porthcawl is to retain that heritage, retain that seaside. Growing up, I used to come down and go to the fair, have your fish and chips, riding the donkey. You know, these are rite to passage. And although we want it to have a more upmarket feel to attract visitors, we're not going to take away from that heritage. Lots of seaside resorts around the UK do it very well. We want Porthcawl to have its own identity, but we want to do it well. So what we are looking at, as Councillor Farr has said, is there a possibility of having seasonal rides or other attractions rather than that fairground in the one place? I mean, to be fair, Mr. Evans could, the owner of that site, could decide tomorrow to close the fair. We can't control that. That's a decision for him going forward. But it is in our LDP and part of our landowners' agreement to have that mixed-use development. So we'll be looking at alternative leisure options and possibly having those seasonal rides.
Just for clarity, Janine, I won't change the gentleman's name, but is that a voluntary transaction of that site, or is that part of the CPO we mentioned earlier?
No.
The agreement,
yeah, agreement, we have, since 2014, there's been a landowner agreement in place between the Evans family, who own Coney Beach, and BCBC, who own Sandy Bay. Right. We own 60% of the land holdings. The Evans family own 40%. And in that land deal, we're going to bring forward both sites for that mixed-use development that we've talked about, with that ribbon of Griffin Park coming through it. Housing, that school site is part of the redevelopment. Active travel, new park, that's all part of that development, Chair, coming forward. But in order that we don't lose all of the leisure facilities, what we are looking at is new leisure facilities elsewhere and throughout the site, and whether we can bring, for instance, seasonal rides, winter wonderlands, some seasonal rides in the summer to retain that seaside feel.
Yeah, okay.
So would you like me to take the other questions as well, Chair? Would you like?
No, yeah.
So what is local housing need? We undertake significant work on local housing need as a local authority. That's a key part of our statutory duty. And there's been a comprehensive housing strategy prepared as a result of the LDP, the Local Development Plan. And what is very clear is there is a need for 1,100 new homes, new dwellings within Porthcawl within the next 15 years to accommodate the population growth in that area. Now, what is very important is that we look at a mixed use of a mixture of homes, not just homes to rent, but affordable homes, not just affordable in like shared equity, etc., but social housing as well, plus extra care. We're looking at those facilities for some elderly residents who need a little bit more help. So we're looking at the whole range of homes across the piece in Porthcawl. It's something that has some detailed information behind it, the housing needs assessment that's been part of the LDP. John, do you want to say anything more on that, or does that suffice? Yeah, I'll pass on to John, Chair, because he's got some more detail on that.
Yes, certainly, Jonathan.
Yes, I mean, under planning terms, we're quite restricted what we can demand in terms of affordable housing, but we do have policies, and this policy will be carried forward into the replacement plan along with the supplementary planning guidance that will follow on from that. But at the moment, the maximum we would seek under the planning system is 30% affordable housing. But that's not to say that that's that would be the maximum that we would achieve on this particular site. As the authorities have got a landowning interest, then some of the affordable housing contribution could be controlled via land ownership deals rather than through the planning system. But the planning system is there as a backstop. All our sites will have to have, or certainly in Porthcawl, will have to have a minimum of 30% affordable housing, and that can cover a range of affordable housing options. Shared equity, it could be social housing, it could be extra care facilities. So it all comes under that umbrella of affordable housing. But the policies are quite clear on that, and these have all been factored into the viability assessments that are carried out, not just in Porthcawl, but all of the strategic sites that are coming forward in the LDP. So the sites are viable; they can take that amount of affordable housing. But yeah, it's controlled through the planning system, land use planning system. But that doesn't mean to say that as a landowner interest that we could go further than that. The planning doesn't stop that happening.
Yeah, Chair, could I come back in on question 2 then, about the multi-storey car park? Yeah. So what Jake has popped up is the placemaking strategy again. So Jake, is it possible to zoom in on the Hillsborough site? So what we have in Porthcawl is currently a number of car parks, of course, in the Porthcawl town centre. We've got John Street, in the town centre. We've got Hillsborough, which is a surface car park, and people can currently park on Salt Lake itself. Now, the plan, of course, under this placemaking is that we're going to look at parts of Salt Lake for housing, parts of it for that open frontage, very large seafront park, parts for leisure, parts for the new Aldi store. So what's been clear is we are actually taking parking out of Porthcawl. So what we are looking at, we're undertaking a feasibility study, is whether it's possible to replace just that parking, not increase the parking, Chair, just replace the parking that we're removing, and create a possible multi-storey on Hillsborough itself. Now, what we want to do is just not create a multi-storey. I think the important thing is that we create a vista coming down the portway. So we have talked about a multi-storey car park with a live-in wall as you come down the portway, so you don't just get an end. And then the end that faces the roundabout at the top of the Hillsborough site, and the end at the bottom that faces the Dock Street link could have some commercial units on the ground floor, so you have an active frontage, and possibly even some residential above. So the car park itself could be bookended with residential and commercial. We've also been looking at other car parks across the UK, and some of the work that they've done is they've put some commercial units on the ground floor as well, Chair. For instance, you can have uses like golf, crazy golf, or laser quest, or bowling alleys, none of which need any daylight, or jungle gyms, playgrounds. So what we're looking at is, can we put leisure facilities on a ground floor, possibly, of a multi-storey? Can we put commercial units and housing on the end? And then, of course, all of that then pays for the multi-storey to be constructed. So that's the feasibility work that's going and been undertaken at the moment. We're looking at examples, benchmarking best practice elsewhere in the UK. But it's not an increase in parking, it's just replacing the parking that we are taking away as a result of the Salt Lake development.
Councillor Bledsow's question was something about the Welsh Assembly.
I thank all of the officers for their very detailed answers. I'm just working from the report that's in front of me, which under 4.14 says the construction of a multi-storey car park. That's what the report says.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we'd like to achieve, to construct a multi-storey car park. So what we're currently doing is the feasibility for that.
Okay. Councillor Phil Jenkins is next. So, let's confess.
It's just that I'm told, I do apologise, Chair, I'm told that isn't achievable in other parts of the county because of Welsh Government policy to not build multi-storey car parks. I don't understand how the two conflict.
Right.
Yeah, so I think the difference, I'm going to hand over to John. I think the difference is we can't create new multi-storey car parks. What we're doing is we're not increasing the number of parking spaces. It's taking the parking spaces that are existing in Porthcawl and that we need to create as part of this development and just putting it in one location. So it's slightly different nuance to the creation of brand new parking, which is against government guidance. But if I could pass over to John, he could probably explain in more detail from a planning perspective. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Janine. Yes, as Councillor Bletcher quite rightly points out, the shift in emphasis in national planning policy is quite clear through the publication of the Wales Strategic Plan, Future Wales 2040, and the document that sits underneath that, which is Planning Policy Wales. I think it's fairly clear that Welsh Government's agenda is not to encourage additional parking facilities within centres. However, that is caveated with the need to have certain evidence to provide a sort of a backdrop to the need for additional parking. Now, in Bridgend, for example, it's already well served by parking within the town centre. We also have a multi-storey car park in the Rue. We're also demolishing a multi-storey car park as well, so we've got to bear that in mind. So it's not a blanket no to any parking facility. It's not just multi-stories, all parking facilities, but everything has to be evidenced on a case-by-case basis. In terms of Porthcawl, a future iteration, a previous iteration rather, of the regeneration strategy was built entirely around car parking. And that was, there may be members that may recall that the original planning consent back in 2008 was more car parking than anything else. But times have changed. And what we are looking to achieve via the placemaking strategy, which is being submitted through the LDP process as well, is to sort of replace some of the, or offset some of the loss of the car parking that would occur as a result of the development. So it's not increasing the capacity, and I think my colleague Jake has got the figures to sort of indicate what the demand is going to be as well. So some work has been done on that, but we still got to look at that feasibility. Still got to go through the planning process. But the idea is to have a parking facility just to offset what may be lost through the development that's going to come forward, and that development is food store. There's a residential going there. There's likely to be commercial activities and leisure uses on the site that's now currently used as a car park. But clearly we can't have a regeneration strategy that's built around car parking. It's got to be a balance. And to that end, that's why we've encouraged the development of the Metro Link, which is a facility that will be connected to South Wales Metro. This has been recognised in the South Wales Metro programme, and this again will encourage a modal shift from the traditional car-based journeys into more public transport oriented and active travel orientated transport. So it's trying to achieve that balance. So it's not just about multi-storey car parks. It is about looking at car parking capacity as well.
Okay. Councillor Bledsoe?
I think any further questions is not about Porthcawl, so I need to take that outside this meeting. Thank you.
Oh, okay, yeah. Councillor Phil Jenkins, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks very much. Well, I've been listening to my other councillors, and it's obviously situated, all my questions are related to something that's already been raised. And I refer to perhaps the Cabinet members' vision. This is my vision as well. We had opportunity here in Porthcawl, whilst the majority of the plans, Cosy Corner, the Pavilion, various other things there, I feel quite happy with, obviously, but I find it remiss of me to not state that we're a county borough-wise council, etc. And we, again, over the last decade or maybe more, who have we consulted with for a vision, particularly the Evanses, maybe Park Dean, etc., to enter into a partnership? Porthcawl historically is a tourist town, and to create employment would be in the tourism industry, I would see it. We don't have many manufacturing or heavy industry left in our localities. And when we're coming back to the number of houses, which 1,100 are mentioned, I can recall asking, I think, the chief executive of the health board there, what was the situation. There is no meat on the bone to support all these developments, private homes. We know in the county at the moment, we can't service our own highways, we can't service our lighting, we can't service refuge to a suitable degree. Education was just touched on with a school, possibly extension in the primary sector. How come? Where is the secondary education system? Where is the meat on the bone for surgeries, dental practices, and all the infrastructure to support people who are living in this community? Right. If you take as well, I go back to what I said.
Councillor Jenkins, can you? I'm conscious of time here. We've been going an hour and a half.
Well, every time everybody's conscious of the time. I've been sitting here now for a couple of hours listening to every chair, with all due respect. Yeah. And previously, the leader of the borough always used to wrap us up with, "I'm mindful of the time and the officers."
Yeah, we need a question, Councillor Jenkins. That's
well, the question is based then, where are the services coming from to support all of these, and who did they consult with in its entirety to make Porthcawl a resort that would rival any in the UK? And I believe it could have been, right? And to take away its fare and its historical connections is, well, crazy as far as I'm concerned at the moment, and replace it with up to 1,100 homes. Right? When there isn't no meat on the bone for the infrastructure for those. Henry Dante, just down the road in Surrey, had bought a 20-acre site years ago. He's putting a holiday village down there in Barry. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But can I go back on the housing, and where is the infrastructure to support all of this?
Let's answer these two questions, and the two you pose, and we'll go from there, okay?
Yes, go on.
We can discuss the other people's intentions all night, but let's ask the two questions. And Janine, you.
Yeah, I don't know if I've got two questions there. A couple of things, though, to come back to Councillor Jenkins. Some of his comments he made, we can't service the rubbish and we can't service the highways. Well, we've got the second best performing waste contract in Wales. 72% of our refuse is recycled. So I'm not going to go there, Chair. But all of those details are there, so that I'm afraid some of those claims are unsubstantiated. But with regard to the fairground, that is owned by the Evans family, that's privately owned, so we can't dictate what happens to that fairground, whether it stays open or closed. But we do know that since 2014, the Evans family have wanted to exit from that, and it is part of a detailed strategy for the redevelopment of the whole of Porthcawl. Who have we consulted? Well, we've done extensive consultation, as we've talked about in the presentation, extensive consultation, 8 cabinet reports, 3 council reports, 2 scrutinies, a call-in, LDP engagement. We've done engagement with the local members. We've done planning applications, placemaking strategy, significant work on all of this. Remember now, Councillor Jenkins, this is a strategic plan. What happens next is the detail comes in with the planning applications. And as John has spoken about earlier, we're looking at that 20-minute neighbourhood. We're looking at active travel. We're looking at parks. We're looking at employment. We're looking at all of those things that come in next. What we have is a strategic local development plan in place, and then the detail comes at the next level down through the planning process. That's where your detail comes. So there's been significant consultation on all of this, just to assure you. Where does the need for 1,100 homes come from? It comes from the housing needs assessment. The growth in population in Porthcawl is driving that housing need. Bridgend is the 3rd fastest growing region in Wales, behind Newport and behind, oh no, actually it wasn't Newport, it was Cardiff and what was the other one? Bailey Glamorgan, yeah. So we were the third fastest growing. In fact, our population is growing as fast as the capital. So we do need homes, not just in Porthcawl, homes all across our county, such as Councillor Jenkins, the homes we're providing in Wenny Road, in Maesteg is another example of the homes, much needed homes we're providing, and not just homes, affordable homes as well, is critical. So if you want to come and have a chat with myself and John about the LDP and how after 3 years, we've all the detail we've got to put that together. We've got a substantial evidence base of over 50 studies that we can let you have a sight of. We're very happy to do that if you want to come and see the detail that's gone behind the strategic planning of the county. So I hope that assists, Councillor Jenkins.
Well, yes, to a certain extent. And what I meant was about consultation as well. All the years that you've been up in and down, putting on the table, throwing it off the table, Porthcawl, and it's a jewel in our crown. And what I'm saying is, out there are investors, maybe in the UK, multi-billion pound investors that you could have talked to with your plans, etc. But I don't think that has ever happened. I don't know even if you talk to Parkdean, and they've spent a considerable amount of money there, etc. But I'm concerned about service in these houses, not that about the need, because everybody is entitled to a home, and I want to see no homeless people anywhere. So don't get me wrong there. But you haven't shown me how you're going to service the needs of these people. You know, and I know, we can't get an ambulance, you can't get a doctor's appointment, right? Schools are very hard to come by, etc. There it's a breaking point. It's great. The strategy is wonderful there, right? It's the same everywhere, isn't it? You know, so I concede to what you're saying to a large extent, but there, right? And but it's no good having, and I say, all the gear without the idea, you know, the proper idea, or all the ideas without the proper gear. Then should you say that?
Okay, I don't know if there's a question in that lot. I can't. Do you need to come back in?
Yeah,
I got a
just
big other councillors waiting to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to say that healthcare is the responsibility of the Health Board, including primary healthcare, which Councillor Jenkins, I believe, has referred to. And that is all those sites are planned. Land is planned in the local development plan. If Councillor Jenkins has a look in the local development plan, he will see that. However, we can't provide those facilities as the council. That is the position of the Health Board. And that's their responsibility for providing that. With regard to investors, we speak to significant investors continuously. We speak to Parkdean. In fact, we were there in January with the general manager walking around looking at the art of the possible. With regard to Salt Lake, we speak to him regularly. And not just that, we're speaking to investors for other areas of Porthcawl, including the leisure site itself and others. Of course, I can't tell you about some of that until I have some concrete plans in place. But rest assured, Councillor Jenkins, we do know what we are doing here.
Thank Councillor Jenkins, I hope we'll take up the director's invitation for a meeting. There's lots we could discuss, no doubt. But I'm going to have to move on to...
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Councillor Martin Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just picking up on the comments about the fair there. I think you know, I was aware, and I think most of us were aware that the fairground was leaving or closing down. And of course it is, you know, it's a private enterprise, and a private enterprise will do what private enterprise wants to do. I think it's regrettable that there's a feeling that the fairground is incompatible with, I think it was, the upmarket aspirations of Porthcawl. I think we need to, you know, reflect on everyone's welcome in our county borough, and it takes all sorts of people to make the world go round. So I think that's slightly regrettable. But my question is, the talk of this peripatetic fair, this seasonal fair, where would that be held? Where would that be cited? How many weeks in the year? So what duration would that be? And what sort of impact assessment has been done to perhaps evaluate the impact on the local economy between the existing fair, which is there, you know, quite established and is semi-permanent, and this peripatetic offering? I mean, in short, is quinoa worth more to the local economy than candy floss?
Janine?
Yes, I absolutely love quinoa. I love candyfloss too. I don't think we ever said that the fairground was incompatible with Porthcawl. In fact, what I do believe I said was that we want to retain that heritage. I do believe I said we want to retain that day out at the seaside, where you come and you enjoy the beach, you enjoy fairground attractions, you enjoy leisure, you have your fish and chips and your ice cream, and that is an instrumental part of the British seaside.
You said rite of passage was the phrase you used.
I think it's rite of passage. If you
my eyes would have been shut, but I was actually listening.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And if you ever went on the Big Dipper at Porthcawl, that was a rite of passage, let me tell you. So I don't think we ever said that. However, what we want to do is to look at the owner of that site wants to relinquish that fairground in time. So what we want to look at is what is the leisure offer we can bring forward instead. And what we do have in most towns in the UK, they don't have permanent fairgrounds now, with the exception of people like Blackpool, etc. What you do have is a seasonal offer. You very often have a winter offer where you have an ice drink, etc. And then you very often have a summer offer. Where would we cite these? Well, these are the things that we're looking at currently. We've got that beautiful seafront park that we're putting in. Would it be a suitable location to pop some seasonal rides there and or a winter wonderland akin? Are there other places we can put it? What is the leisure offer in itself? And that's the work we're doing now. We're looking at public realm, we're looking at opportunities. But what is incredibly important is that when we're doing the public realm and when we're looking at open spaces, that we create spaces where people can gather and enjoy themselves together. That's really important. That's another very important part of the seaside heritage. So hopefully that answers Councillor Williams.
I'm going to bring Councillor Williams back in now. This is the last word on this because we're on point 2 now. I'm going to call a break then for 10 minutes after that, and then we're going to come back on point 3. Is that okay, everybody? Martin, do you want the last word?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks for that answer. No, the question I think that wasn't answered is, do we know the economic impact on the town of the fair closing versus what may replace it? So do we have will it be neutral in the round, or do we have an indication of what that fair is worth to the local economy? And that's the question. If the answer is no, the answer is no, but that's the question.
I don't, well, the income and outgoings of that fairground are the private
I think what
commercial entities
is what it brings into the town.
Of Mr. Evans.
It's difficult. I'll also say, Martin, it's difficult to answer that. But let Janine, put Janine's mouth.
So I actually can't tell you how much that fair brings into the economy in terms of monetary figures. What I do have is figures of consumer spend, number of visitors, and probably footfall to that fairground the Evans family would share with us. But what I do know is this regeneration is extensive. It's over 79 acres of site, and it will bring considerably more visitors into Porthcawl than we currently have visiting the fairground. We're planning on having a whole range of leisure facilities available across the site. I mean, people seem to think this regeneration is based on homes, and that's only a very small component of what it is we're planning in the area. So we'll see coming forward. I'm pretty sure that as we get into the cost-benefit analysis of some of the offer, when we get into the detail, we'll be able to look at that entity going forward. And of course, back to the earlier point, it's a private individual who owns that fairground. So that decision is for them, really.
We're going to have to move on. Thank you, Janine. We just only on page 9. So I'm going to call a quick break for 10 minutes. We're going to come back and we're going to have to whiz through these the next 4 or 5, whatever they are, items, I'm afraid. Okay, so let's see you all back at 10 to. Thank you.